everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today's JAE Lee Day, and we are looking at the last issue he did for Marvel before moving on to Image in the early 90s. This is Spider-Man issue number 43, cover dated February 1993. Last thing he did before moving on to Youngblood Strike File with Extreme Studios and Image Comics. You know, I don't know what more I can say about this issue that I haven't said about the first two, issue 42 and 41. This is a three-parter. This is the finale. Relating to JAE Lee's artwork, what I've mentioned before is I feel like he's, you know, on a tight deadline for this one. He's probably working on this and some Youngblood Strike File stuff. Probably putting more time into the Youngblood Strike File pages because he's probably getting paid a lot more for those pages. But still, I think the artwork overall is pretty darn awesome. It's just, like I said, deadline is definitely looming on this one, and he's pulling out all the tricks he's got to get through pages and burn through them as quickly as possible, is at least what I feel. Cover is still pretty good, presenting all the good stuff that we like from early 90s JAE Lee, the moody lighting, the texture work on Spider-Man, and Iron Fist, kind of reminiscent of maybe a mix of Simon Bisley and Bill Sienkiewicz, excuse me, and of course the Minion, repeated pattern background that we've seen in the Namor stuff. I will say I don't feel like the artwork is as refined on this as it was on Namor. I've talked about how JAE Lee sometimes has kind of a rough kind of texturing in his artwork, and sometimes a very clean aesthetic that maybe is more reminiscent of his more modern style. None of that is apparent here. We're just stuck with the rough and gruff style, which makes sense. Again, if my hypothesis is correct, that there's, this is like a deadline issue. He's trying to get it out as quickly as possible and move on to Image, where the big bucks are, at least at that point in the early 90s. So pretty awesome cover, I gotta say. I still think it's pretty eye-catching, pretty cool, and some stellar JAE Lee artwork. Let's have a look inside and see what's going on. This might not be a long review because I feel like I'm going to be repeating a few themes and ideas that I've mentioned in the first review, the past two reviews relating to this three-part series, so I'll give it a try anyway. So it might not be a very long review. Do like, once again, this establishing shot. It's probably the one he puts the most effort in this issue, and possibly in all three issues. Even though it's pretty minimalist, but again, it drives home the point of what we need. The setting, just like last issue, the Brooklyn Bridge. We've got the Twin Towers in the background, which obviously after 9/11 are not there anymore. I do, 90s comics, anytime, New York was portrayed, you were almost certain to have a shot of the Twin Towers in there. The crossover that Rob Liefeld did with Tom McFarlane before McFarlane left Marvel. I forget the name exactly of it, but it was X-Force and Spider-Man. The Twin Towers in the background here, looking almost more like obelisks than anything else, just a dark side and a light side. No more detail is needed than that. You got a bit of a hint of the antenna on the top that help identify those buildings, and I don't know if New York's going through some sort of electricity blackout because none of the buildings are lit up, but there's quite a lot of light down here by the bottom of the Brooklyn Bridge for some reason. But yeah, pretty cool establishing shot. Get in, get out really quickly. We've got our newscaster kind of giving us the review of what's been going on in the last two issues here real quick to catch us up, and then boom, we're right in the middle of the action. Spider-Man, Iron Fist fighting these cybernetic minions. You gotta marvel at this background where there's literally nothing but the minions, who all kind of look like each other, and the level at which, I feel like he took more time to draw the main figures here, which look pretty good. You've got a nice bird's eye view down, kind of good foreshortening, exaggerated anatomy. It's the early 90s, that's fine. Kind of a rough shading and texture work on the figures. And then, man, just how rough are these guys, and how quickly must he have gotten through drawing them, right? Still, though, pretty in your face, cool looking piece of art, I gotta say. So Terry Cavanaugh's the writer, JAE Lee's the artist, Erica Moran the colorist, and Joe Rosen the letterer. Once again, I'm gonna mention that I do think generally how Marvel colored JAE Lee around this time, as opposed to Image and their computer coloring, does fit his style a lot better here in the darker kind of vibe that it gives off. So we've got a few pages to bring us up on the other players in the story. Not that it matters that much. Again, clever use of the silhouette to get through some pages pretty quickly. This whole shot is basically almost all in silhouette, and that means you can get to the cool pages and spend a bit more time on something like this, on this splash. Although he's still using those tricks, lots of black shadows, right? Faceless minions that resemble themselves here. I mean, to fully black out the minions back here and just see parts of their face, I think is one, graphically clever, but also, once again, helps you get through those deadlines real quick. I love the effect he's got here of Iron Fist punching. Just kind of a different take on, you know, energy lines, speed lines, whatever you want to call them. A lot thicker. Probably, again, in line with the fact that he's got to get through this issue pretty darn quickly. And just sometimes it's cool to just, you know, omit detail here to give the fist kind of almost a flashing kind of light effect, right? Which if you go back, I saw the Steve Rude video recently where he's talking about Jack Kirby doing that, where he pulls back on the detail and explains how, you know, when you get punched and stuff, Jack Kirby as a kid, you know, he was running around the streets of New York getting into fights with other gangs and stuff, and he was trying to reproduce basically that feeling of, you know, when you get punched in the face, there's like a flash, right? There's a moment where you kind of just see a bit of light, and that's what Jack Kirby was trying to create, and did succeed at that in most of his comics when characters are getting hit in the face, and artists obviously followed that all throughout the decades after and got inspired by Jack Kirby. So I would even say, you know, you can almost pull out more of this line or make it finer for the contour of the fist there, but pretty good effect. Maybe some more interesting coloring would have helped that even more. But yeah, again, more of the same from what we've seen last issue. Just panels which are almost all silhouettes, as you can see here. This is something I haven't seen that much, which I find interesting. The silhouettes, but with some speed lines kind of coming off. I'm not saying JAE Lee'S the first guy to do that, but I like that effect here. It works really well storytelling-wise. Another establishing shot of the top of the Brooklyn Bridge, drawn very quickly, which I think is great. Yeah, again, just smart storytelling, I would say, in this. Like, you want to learn how to get through an issue that you've been hired to do, and get through it quickly. Look no further than this 3-parter for just tons of tricks about that. Here's Spider-Man, just interesting because you get more of his facial features, the nose and the mouth, which is a little odd because that's not typically how he was drawn in the early 90s. It was, you know, the McFarlane kind of model was being followed by most artists. So kind of an interesting, weird look at Spider-Man with a very kind of face molding mask, right? I like the way also he kind of bleeds the water here out and over, layered over this panel here, and becomes the bottom of the panel. I think that's a pretty cool design element. I mean, you know, his page designs are always interesting and fun for sure. This is another clever silhouette. Like, look at the amount. This is all black except for Spider-Man's eye, Iron Man's mask, a bit of highlights so we know there's an arm there and Iron Fist's shoulder, and some lights on the buildings back here. I guess the electricity's back on, and that is it. And I mean, even the water itself, I mean, we would have to know that they fall in water first, and also the splish maybe helps, but who would have guessed that this is water other than, you know, that this is taking place under the Brooklyn Bridge? So logically it should be water, right? But he gets away with it. It's crazy. Love this kind of silhouette work that he does here. Just adding in some white here and there to give us some detail, the rivets, I guess, and the makings and workings of the guns here, just so we know that they're guns. I mean, this is a panel that you can probably get through in 10-15 minutes at the most. Yeah, very interesting. It's kind of weird to see because I feel like Terry Kavanagh is just your typical Marvel writer and was probably imagining just a typical kind of Marvel house style for this type of story. So this is a very Marvel house style story being drawn by an artist who is not Marvel house style at all. Again, the balls to just throw in those black shapes and the white medium on top. How quickly he's drawn the spiderweb here, but it all works again storytelling wise. Another great silhouette, right? Always well defined with the shapes that you recognize what is being silhouetted here. Got another splash with a broken border that probably took 10 seconds to put down with a brush. Really is not worried about, you know, keeping it clean at all throughout this issue. Silhouette, silhouette, more silhouette, mostly silhouette. I mean, this page, man, if that's an hour, I'd be surprised. And I mean, at this time, you know, artists were moving such a breakneck speed from one company to the other, you know, doing half an issue, leaving. I guess Marvel was just lucky enough. In this case, they knew JAE Lee was becoming kind of a hot artist, and they're like, don't really care what level he's drawn at. He's popular. He's selling books. So let's get his work in there before, of course, he does move on to Image. And it happens after this issue here. But it truly is insane the number of pure kind of silhouette panels are in this issue. More so, I think, than in the other ones. But again, the story beats and the story points are clear and concise. And it's not hard to understand what's going on, even though the artwork is so dang rough. And again, just going to repeat more of the same, full silhouettes everywhere, black background all throughout. So I don't know if he was doing that before. This may be the first issue where the pages are actually black, right, in the negative space. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like I didn't notice that the first 2 issues. I don't know if that's a particular choice that he made here or what's going on, but maybe again to work well with a mostly silhouetted panels or something. And it's an odd 2-page spread, because just like I talked about how on Namor I felt like he was drawing full bleed pages, but they were being reduced with the white border around it for some reason, because that was still like the average Marvel format or something. Once again here, I don't know if it's choice because he has to draw less, right? Because the space between the sides here and the top leads me to believe it wasn't necessarily meant to be a full bleed image, but man, that's a good way to get through 2 pages really quickly here. So it does in that way feel a little bit like some image style storytelling is going on here. And again, to me, it just seems like JAE Lee is just racing to get through this issue. Still a very talented artist, right? Like, just to show, usually mounds of henchmen, kind of piled up, but take quite a while to draw, right? Arms and legs sticking out, hands, whatever. JAE Lee just has the balls to just do a pile of rubble, all in silhouette. Probably added this in white medium, one hand here to indicate that it's a pile of these guys, and boom, you're out. He's already established these are multiple dudes, so you get it, right? And boom, once again, finishes literally with an almost full silhouette page. Clever way to draw a helicopter, not have to do all the details. Actually, 2 helicopters. I don't know how accurate this one is. It kind of looks like some early Rob Liefeld helicopters from X-Force, to be honest. And then he gives us one last kind of cool looking evil demon cybernetic guy. And this is basically what JAE Lee leaves Marvel with on his way to Youngblood's Trifile at Extreme Studios and Image Comics, which is what we're going to be reviewing his first issue next week. There you go, guys. As I said, this will probably be a shorter one. Not much more to add as compared to the first 2 parts of this storyline. And definitely, I would say the cover, he probably took a little bit more time. I can tell from as compared to the insides. We do get more of his fine lines here and there, as opposed to the majority of the stuff that's very kind of rough, kind of just thrown down on the page real quick to get this one done. So there you go, guys. That is my review of Spider-Man issue number 43. If you are subscribed and you're still watching, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your support. If you are watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It really helps the channel out, helps us grow, helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, and helps get us closer to our goal of hitting 500 subs. And that's where YouTube officially recognizes us as an official channel, and helps us a little bit with the algorithm and suggesting us to people on your right-hand side when you're watching YouTube videos. So everyone out there, thank you so much once again for watching, and have an awesome day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.